Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Joey Harris, and we are broadcasting from makeshift studios in the shadow of South Central Virginia. Follow the show on Twitter and Blue Sky at Cup of Joe Pod. Email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. You can support the show at paypal.me/cupofjoepod. I am also on Cash App and Venmo at the Joey Harris. If you would like to send me a couple of bucks that way, I would appreciate it. And of course, patreon.com/babykangaroomedia for bonus episodes of the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, the Joey Harris Super Show, the Green Room, the Book Club Baristas, and so much more. Just $5 a month for hours of extra content. And folks, Nan and I recorded an episode of the Book Club Baristas about Lonesome Dove. Tyler and I did a Cup of Joe on Patreon about Final Battle 2025. So much more. The Super Show last month was just fantastic. So much for just $5 a month at patreon.com/babykangaroomedia. And before we start, I would just like to send out my deepest condolences. We've had a couple of deaths in wrestling since I last recorded. I want to send out my best rest in peace to Rick Link, Man Mountain Link, the Beastmaster Rick Link, longtime professional wrestling journeyman, as well as Bobby Duncombe Sr. Both passed away, so our thoughts and prayers and condolences go out to their friends and fans and family. And I just want to also extend my thanks to last week's guest, Ed Holinsky. Ed was a fantastic guest, and we're going to get him back again at some point. But today we take a look at World War III 1995 from WCW. The 1995 World War III pay-per-view was shown on November the 26th, 1995 from the Norfolk Scope in Norfolk, Virginia. There were 12,000 in attendance and the show did 90,000 buys. We start out with our intro. Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan welcome us to World War III. They talk about the main event and run down what we are going to see. Mean Gene Okerlund talks to Hulk Hogan, Sting, and Randy Savage. Hogan says the dark side of Hulk Hogan is over. He throws his black garb away in a trash can that has a fire going. He then throws a copy of the Wrestling Observer in the fire. Flashback to what has happened between DDP and Johnny B. Bad and Kimberly. WCW World Television Championship match. The title and Kimberly's services are on the line. Johnny B. Bad versus Diamond Dallas Page with Kimberly. They start the fight as soon as Bad gets in the ring. They drive to a corner and break. Page goads Bad out to chase him and then jumps Bad. They trade moves and counters. Bad with a side headlock. Page comes back. He stomps Bad. Page with an armbar. Bad gets out and pushes Page down. Page goes out and Bad takes him down with a plancha. They fight on the outside. Bad ran into the corner and Page hits a belly-to-back suplex. Page with a reverse pancake. Page wastes too much time. He hits a clothesline for a 2 count. Page with a corner whip and charge. He misses a second one when Bad moves. Bad is avoiding Page's offense. Bad with a foot to Page, back and forth. Bad with a powerbomb for a 2 count. Page with a roll-up with his feet on the ropes to get a 2 count. They trade covers. Bad with a head scissors takedown. Bad goes for the Bad mood, but Page gets his knees up. He gets a gutbuster for a 2 count. Bad reverses a tombstone for a 2 count. Page spilled out onto the floor. Bad hits the Bad move on the outside. He throws Page in and hits a leg drop from the apron to get a pin. Kimberly looks unsure, but then hugs Bad. Mean Gene talks to Bad and Kimberly. He offers her the opportunity to manage him and gives her time to think about it. Taped Fist Challenge. Big Bubba Rogers versus Jim Duggan. Duggan attacks Rogers from behind as Rogers was coming in the ring. He brutalizes Rogers. He goes to hit Rogers with the 2x4 and Rogers begs off. Rogers suckers Duggan in with a shot. They trade blows and Rogers gets knocked to the outside. They fight all over ringside. Rogers trapped between the rings and knocked onto the floor. They fight between the rings. Rogers hits an uppercut. He keeps the assault up in the ring, back and forth. Rogers adds more tape to his fist. Duggan with a shoulder block that knocks Rogers out. Rogers tapes Duggan to the top rope. Rogers beats on Duggan. Duggan backdrops Rogers out and gets loose from the rope. They fight outside. Duggan slams Rogers. He hits a 3-point stance. VK Wall Street comes down with a chain around his hand. He gets on the apron and Duggan hits him with the 2x4. Rogers gets the chain and hits Duggan with it. Duggan doesn't get up on the 10 count and Rogers wins by knockout. Mean Gene talks to Ric Flair. He talks about Sting. He says the Great One is back one more time. He says he's going to rule WCW one more time. Cutie Suzuki and Mayumi Ozaki versus Bull Nakano and Akira Hokuto. Mike Tenay joins commentary. Nakano and Hokuto attack as soon as they get to the ring. Ozaki being dominated by Nakano. Hokuto tagged in and keeps up the attack. Ozaki tries to tag Suzuki in. Nakano tagged back in and keeps the assault up. A double team to Ozaki gets a 2 count. More double teaming. Hokuto tagged back in. Ozaki hits a modified DDT. And Suzuki tagged in. She hits a drop kick for a 2 count. The faces both get half crabs on to a big pop. Suzuki kicks Ozaki accidentally when Nakano moves. Nakano misses a moonsault, and both women hit double foot stomps. Nakano with a double suplex back and forth. Faces with a double Hurricane Rana for a 2 count. Nakano with a big clothesline for a 2 count. Nakano hits the flip splash on the faces on the outside. The action is fast and furious. Nakano hits a guillotine leg drop on Ozaki to get the pin. Mean Gene talks to Lex Luger and Jimmy Hart about taking on Randy Savage. Luger says Savage won't make it to the Battle Royal, and at the end of the night, he will be the new WCW champion. WCW United States Championship match, Kazuki Sasaki with Sonny Ono versus Chris Benoit. Sasaki is the current champion. They lock up and drive to a corner. They break. They vie for position. Benoit with a waist lock. He gets an armbar on into a front face lock. Sasaki with a bridge. Tests of strength. Benoit with a double arm lock. Sasaki with a slam for a 2 count. Sasaki with a side headlock. Back and forth. Sasaki slams Benoit down. Sasaki rolls out and Benoit hits a suicide dive onto him. Benoit throws Sasaki back in the ring. Benoit with a leg scissors to Sasaki. Sasaki with a power slam to Benoit for a 2 count. Benoit with a series of German suplexes. Benoit reverses and hits a tombstone. Hits a flying headbutt. He gets a 2 count. Benoit with a top rope Hurricane Rana for another 2 count. Benoit stomps Sasaki. Sasaki comes back with a choke slam. Sasaki with a submission and Benoit gets to the ropes. Sasaki with an inverted brainbuster to get the pin. Mean Gene talks to Kevin Sullivan, the Giant, and Jimmy Hart. Sullivan says the Dungeon of Doom will dominate the Battle Royal. Tony and Bobby then talk about what we just saw and about Starrcade. Flashback to what led to the next match. Mean Gene talks to Randy Savage. He talks about Lex Luger and becoming the next WCW champion. He says he and Luger have a date with destiny. Randy Savage versus Lex Luger with Jimmy Hart. Savage out first to a good ovation. Luger comes out looking very confident. Referee Randy Anderson tries to keep Savage back, but he attacks Luger right away. He beats Luger down in the corner. Savage with a clothesline. He gets a Boston Crab on Luger, who gets to the ropes. It goes outside and Luger ran into the barricade and the ring post. Savage with a slam and a flying elbow, but Hart has the referee distracted. Luger thrown out of the ring. Savage ran into one of the rings. Luger puts Savage in the torture rack on the outside. Luger rolls Savage in and puts an armbar on Savage's injured shoulder. Savage passes out and Luger wins. Sting comes out and makes Luger let the arm go. Flashback to what led to the next match, Ric Flair versus Sting. Sting gets a fantastic reception when he comes out. Sting attacks Flair, who quickly moves to ring 2. Sting follows and slams Flair down. Flair pokes Sting in the eye. He punches Sting in the corner and then chops him. Sting comes back with a clothesline and corner-mounted punches. Flair gives to ring 3. Colonel Robert Parker and Sister Sherry come out to ringside, back and forth in the ring. Flair clothesline to the outside. Flair back in but can't get Sting down. Flair tries to avoid Sting, but Sting is relentless. Flair gets a chair, but referee Nick Patrick takes it from him. Flair rakes Sting's eyes. Flair low blows Sting. Flair drops a knee on Sting. He goes after Sting's leg. He throws Sting outside. He chops Sting and runs him along the apron. He clips Sting's leg. Flair with a belly-to-back suplex and puts the figure 4 on Sting. Sting reverses it and Flair breaks the hold. Sting with a backslide for a 2 count. Sting comes back. Flair runs to another ring and Sting follows. Flair pokes Sting's eye. Flair goes up top but gets caught and slammed off, so take a shot if you're drinking at home. Sting with corner-mounted punches. Sting with a superplex and the Scorpion Deathlock. Flair quickly taps. Tony and Bobby talk about the Battle Royal. Flashback to what led to the World War III Battle Royal. Mean Gene then talks to Hulk Hogan. He says he is coming for his title again. It's every man for himself. Tony and Bobby then show the World Championship belt The other broadcast teams are introduced. Eric Bischoff and Dusty Rhodes are in Ring 2. They talk about the Battle Royal. Chris Cruz and Larry Zbyszko talk about the Battle Royal in Ring 3. The participants of the Battle Royal are introduced. Arn Anderson, Alex Wright, Brian Knobs, Ricky Santana, David Taylor, Scott Armstrong, Sting, Joey Maggs, Pez Whatley, Disco Inferno, Ming, Stevie Ray, Mark Starr, Buddy Lee Parker, James Earl Wright, Lex Luger, Eddie Guerrero, Cobra, The Giant, Paul Orndorff, Chris Kanyon, Bobby Walker, Robert Eaton, Chris Benoit, Randy Savage, Marcus Bagwell, The Yeti, Kurosawa, Hugh Morris, The Zodiac, VK Wall Street, DDP, Scott Norton, Brian Pillman, Craig Pittman, The One Man Gang, Super Assassin No. 2, Mr. JL, Bunkhouse Buck, Kensuke Sasaki, Mike Winter, The Shark, Steve Armstrong, Hawk, Dave Sullivan, Scotty Riggs, Johnny B. Bad, Big Train Bart, Steven Regal, Dick Slater, Max Muscle, Super Assassin No. 1, Fidel Sierra, Kevin Sullivan, Jerry Saggs, Jim Duggan, Booker T, Big Bubba Rogers, Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan are your participants. Michael Buffer makes the introduction of the match. It starts, and there is no way that you can follow all of this. I want $100 for every forearm thrown. The announcers are going crazy, but you can't follow what they are screaming about. People are slowly being eliminated. Hogan is close to being eliminated at one point. Ring 2 gets to 10 men, so they go to Ring 1. Ring 3 then gets down to 10 men, so they also go to Ring 1. The Dungeon of Doom tries to get rid of Hogan. He fights them off. It gets down to 29 men. They take Scott Armstrong out on a gurney. Savage goes after Luger on the outside, down to 10 men. Paul Orndorff eliminated. Eddie Guerrero eliminated. Ric Flair and Arn Anderson are out. The crowd cheers wildly. Sting and Luger team up to take the Giant out, and Hogan dumps all three out. The Giant pulls Hogan out. One Man Gang eliminated. They announce Randy Savage as the winner. Hogan is mad because he wasn't eliminated. Mean Gene comes out, and Hogan is still complaining. They put the belt on Savage and announced him as champion. Savage says he didn't see Hogan being eliminated, but it is what it is. Mixed reaction. Hogan says there's a dark cloud over this because neither man got eliminated. They promise to follow up the next night on Nitro. Savage celebrates as they sign off. We then get our end credits. Final thoughts. Not a good look for Hogan here. The Savage win is different. You can follow me on Facebook, Threads, and Instagram at @TheJoeyHarris. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app. I would really appreciate it as it helps people to find the show. We can also be found on Spotify and YouTube. Just search for The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show and don't forget to hit subscribe. Thank you for joining me. This is Joey saying so long from the heart of Virginia.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.